All
Ready.
right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Amanda and Amy. Welcome, Andy. Welcome, everybody. Let me know in the chat if you are the only grant writer for your nonprofit. If you are the only one, just put me in the chat. If you have a team of two or more, put team. Oh, look at all the me.
Me.
Gosh. Wow, wow, wow. Look at this. Incredible. This is incredible. We got a couple of teams. Team me and my me, myself, and I. That's a team, Janice. I feel you. So the question is, if you're just joining us, if you're the only grant writer for your nonprofit, put me in the chat. If you have two or more, put team. And we see we have a lot of solo people, and this is incredible. And my hat goes out to you because I know, as we talked about earlier, in the small and mid-sized nonprofit grant seeking is often, quote unquote, in addition to all your other responsibilities. You got to do grant research, proposal writing, reporting, relationship management. They're on top of all the other responsibilities that you have. So today we brought the experts here to talk about grant writing for small teams. My name is Aretha Simons. You all know how this works. You type in the chat or in the Q&A. We love you put it in the Q&A. This is being recorded, so you're going to get the recording and the slides. I'm going to turn it over to Alice Ruhnke. She's the president of education at GrantStation, and she's got a lot more to tell you. Alice and Jeremy, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Aretha, and thank you all for being here. I do like getting this feel for how many people are in the room and how what your team composition looks like. We've got a lot of things to talk about today, so I'm just going to jump right in so that we get a chance to cover everything and get your questions answered as well. So I'm going to share with you some different strategies that you can utilize, and you can combine these together. You can do them separately, um, starting with setting those realistic expectations for what is possible with very small teams, how to streamline, how using your talents and the strengths of your stakeholders can really help you, how different artificial intelligence tools can help you save time, and how partnerships can help you. So, we're going to dive into each of these five things today, and talk in more detail about how you can use some of the things that you already have or some of the tools at your fingertips to help out those small teams. And then we'll save the question and answers for the end, but please, since we do have a large crowd, if you could put it over in the Q&A box instead, that would be helpful for Jeremy to be able to find them when we get to that part. So I do want to mention that today and tomorrow is our Tech Soup sale. It's the cheapest 2 days you can get a GrantStation membership, $119 at Tech Soup, and the sale ends tomorrow. So you want to jump over and get that today or tomorrow. So we're going to start by setting our expectations and kind of setting the stage. And each year, GrantStation does a state of grant seeking report. We do a survey. We get around 2,500 or more responses. It's going to be coming out here again really soon. For people and nonprofits to report what's going on with their grant seeking and what's been successful, what challenges they've had, etc. And so one of the questions that we do ask in that report is the size of your team. And so I don't know if it makes you feel any better to know that you are not alone in realizing that a lot of nonprofits in the sector are working with very small teams. So about 65% have only one or two people that are part of the process. So if you feel that number and you feel like, oh gosh, everybody is bigger than me, really they're not. There are, probably bigger teams than you, but the majority of the work that's done in the sector is done by very few people who do really amazing things. The second part of setting those expectations is looking at some of the challenges that grant seekers face. And I don't think any of these things would surprise you as to what the last survey revealed with the increased funder requirements. Now, as 25 unfolded. Some funders did kind of go back to the pandemic level of lessening those requirements because of the stress in the sector from the pandemic, and then now from the changes in the federal government. So hopefully some of those maybe have been eased over the last year. Building funder relationships is always very challenging. Finding the grant opportunities that match. 12% of our respondents said they were having challenges with that. That's where a GrantStation membership does come in very handy, so that you can find the funders that match your organizations and programs from a variety of lenses, so you can find the most funding opportunities. The kind of competition for finite monies is always a challenge, and that is continuing to be seen as, again, those government dollars have been backed off in a lot of our areas, and now a lot more nonprofits are having to go to the private sector to kind of find those dollars. So competition is going to stay the competition is going to stay at this rate and probably increase as more people are seeking those private dollars. And then again, no surprise, you'll see kind of the lack of time or staff to do the work. And so that's where a little bit of what we're going to do today comes in, where can we kind of find those efficiencies? Where can we get others to support what we do? And take some of the burden off of our shoulders as the grant professional that's in charge of doing the finding, the writing, the reporting, all those sorts of things around grants. So I want to also continue with looking at what we call our benchmarker. This also comes from the State of Grantseeking report. And then what we have created is a benchmarker tool that you can go in, and all you have to do is select the size of your budget using these categories, from small budgets of under 100,000 to extra large budgets over 25 million. And then also tagging in what your mission focus area is. And you only have to click those two buttons. And what I'm going to show you an example of what I've done with saying it was a small budget organization in arts, culture, and humanities. And what this allows you to do is to compare yourself against other small budget organizations and organizations in the arts and humanities, and compare yourself against those same organizations. And this is really important because you wouldn't expect that a small budget arts organization is going to be doing the same kind of grant seeking, the same level of grant seeking that a hospital is that has a $20 million budget, right? It allows you to really compare your organization in an apples to apples comparison and see and not rank yourself, but compare yourself on all of these different comparison points. So you can look at, how much of their funding comes from grants, how many are recurring grants. You can look at how many grants they submitted, how many grants they received, where they're getting their largest grants from, and just help you then pinpoint some things where you can start to look at, well, we're doing really well here, but I see that other organizations like ours are getting a lot more reoccurring grants. So maybe we need to add some time into our schedule to make sure we're really meeting our funders' expectations and building those relationships and things like that, so that we can increase our reoccurring grants and things like that. So you can compare yourself against all of these comparison points, and I'm just going to show you what it kind of looks like in the report. So this is just the question of what percentage of your organization's funding is from grants. And you can see here that it has one column for your mission focus, so arts and culture, and then one for small budgets. So you can see here for arts, culture, and humanities, the largest percentage, 10% or less of their budget is coming from grants. So they're getting a lot of their money from other sources. You can look here too for those very small budget organizations. 10% of less come from grants. Then this column over here is just everybody that took the survey, just kind of looking at the sector overall. But you can kind of come in here and look and see where you might fall to help you develop strategies. Again, comparing yourself, benchmarking yourself against like organizations. Here's just another question of how many grant requests did you submit in 2024? So you can see here in arts and culture, the largest percentage were submitting between 11 to 20 grant proposals a year. For small budget organizations, the largest percentage were submitting 3 to 5. So again, you can benchmark yourself in here and see if there's places that you might want to really look at and stretch what you're doing, or using this to kind of benchmark, how many should we be submitting a year? How many could we be submitting a year? And then developing strategies around that. So this report is free for anybody if you're a GrantStation member or not. You can access this under our public resources, and then you can go down. The state of grant seeking is the actual report if you want to read the entire report or look at some of the infographics about it. And then the benchmarker is the tool. And you can, like I said, all you have to do is plug in those two things about your mission and your budget. And then if you're not a member, you can print that report off. You can take it to your board or take it to, leadership or whatever to kind of talk about strategies so that you can kind of see where could we be and where are our peers at in this process. So a really good support to help you set realistic expectations of what your grant seeking could be looking like. So that's the first step there. And so we have those realistic expectations. Now we kind of have a feel in our head for how many we're submitting. Now we're going to look at some ways to streamline the process. So we're going to talk about each of these specifically. The first one is about making the decisions on the funding opportunities to pursue. When looking at one of those earlier slides that talked about people having a hard time finding, the matches between the organizations or their organization and the funder. And this process is going to help you find those funders that are going to be the best return on your investment so that you're focusing on, those with the highest return on investment and not wasting your time on the others. I'm going to talk about common attachments and then using a project planning framework that we're always teaching at GrantStation about how to plan and put our proposals together. And then I'll talk about writing some templates of reoccurring sections. So we'll take these all kind of one by one for you to streamline your process. So one of the things that we recommend is when you're looking for those funders and trying to find the best fit funders is to create and use a decision matrix. And what this does is it allows you to make the decisions on which ones you think are going to be the best return on your investment. And I know that a lot of times in your situations, people are constantly coming up to you going, well, why don't you apply for this? Or I saw this opportunity here. Or, this one just came across my desk and oh my gosh, why aren't we doing this? And they're bombarding you all the time with different funding opportunities that don't necessarily fit your organization. And what the decision matrix allows you to do is to run that RFP or that set of instructions through your decision matrix, and then you can come up with the decision if you're going to pursue that one or not. And it takes a lot of the stress off your shoulders because it's not about that Alice said she didn't have the time to submit this proposal, but really looking at our organization's strategies, this one didn't fit what we think is our best return on investment. And so it takes some of that weight off of your shoulders to really, again, prioritize the ones that are going to help your organization the most. With a decision matrix, Just you can make them very, very simple. What you first do is identify criteria that you're going to use to make those decisions. They can be internal about what you have resources to do. It could be about how this funding opportunity aligns with the funder. And I'm going to show you some different components of all these. Could be about that relationship with the funder, because we do know that when we have those relationships with funders, that the chances of our success in our proposals goes up. And then finally, looking at that financial return on investment. Sometimes some funding opportunities aren't worth the time and energy that you're putting in to write them, complete them, report on them, and that sort of thing. So first you develop your criteria, and then you analyze that criteria, and then you make decisions on if this is a go, a no-go, a wait, put it in the trash can kind of opportunity. So we're going to walk through this with each one. So with looking at your own unique criteria, again, you can decide what unique criteria would fit for you, but I just have some here that would be very common ones that we would want to include. Do we have the time? Is the project ready to, is it developed enough to get a proposal together? Do we have that internal capacity to do the reporting on the back end? Have we done partnership development that needs to be done for this project? Right. So these are just things that you can decide which ones of these are the most important to you. You can use them all. You can add to them. You can scrap them. Just it's about finding out what criteria really fits your organization. Looking at that strategic alignment, again, the better that we have all of these things aligned, the chances of being funded goes up. And so that's where, again, a GrantStation membership can really help you, because it can really help find those funders that align with your areas of interest, with your geographic target area, with your target population, and that sort of thing, and really help find those that you're really strategically aligned with. Looking at if you have a previous history or you have a relationship with a funder, those would increase your chances of funding. And then also looking at, how much does it cost to apply? Not in the sense of we're never handing over any dollars to actually apply. But, when we look at the cost of the time and the energy and spending $3,000 of staff time for a $5,000 grant might not be worth the energy of doing all that. Also looking at things, is there a match requirement? That could be really important for you. If you don't have a match, and it's a required match, it could be something that would kick you out or, make your application less competitive. So you can develop, like I said, your own criteria. If you do have a GrantStation membership, we also have a decision matrix built into our dashboard. So you can go through and kind of rate these on your own. But if you don't have a GrantStation membership, you can just create these, put them into, say, an Excel spreadsheet. And then you're going to take every funding opportunity that comes up and you're going to run it through and you're going to score that application. So in this example, we used a 1 to 3 score. You could use a 1 to 5. I would start low though, start at those lower numbers and see what kind of variations you get before I get to too high of numbers. But here you can see, that where this organization thought they were with these different components, they thought they were very aligned with the mission, not so much with the partnership development. So that might be an area of weakness in the application, but other parts are so strong, the grant amount, the match requirements, the relationship with the funder, all those things were higher. So you can see here, it comes to a total score of 26. And you're going to also create your own key to understand, what does 26 mean, right? And so you can look at, these different things and say, okay, we're going to adopt this this tool, and we're anything that is, scored between 36 and 25, we're going to apply to those. Those are going to be our top A1 funders. There's going to be these in the middle that you maybe need some more discussion, maybe need a little bit more development on your end to make a competitive application in the future. So it's not a no, it's just a not now. We need to do a little bit more work. And then, below your cutoff level there's just not enough of an alignment. But again, kind of having what's your green light, what's your red light, what's your yellow light, that sort of thing can really help you to, again, know which ones are going to be the best ones for you that you want to get on that calendar. And then what are secondary resources that you want to keep continuing to build into the future. So that is a grant decision matrix. Again, you can have as many criteria as you want. It does not have to be complicated, but it can be as complicated as you would like it to be if you want to put a lot of different criteria in there. A second way to streamline your process is develop a file of common attachments. And so in grants, a lot of times you are asked to write a narrative and they'll give you the questions. You're asked to write a budget and they give you a budget form and you write a budget narrative, which explains the budget. But then they also ask you to attach things to your application. And those are attachments, the one thing in the grant world that actually makes sense. And some of the common attachments are your 501c3 letter, your list of board members, audits, your tax forms, your organizational budget. Sometimes you'll see things like resumes or job descriptions, especially in your larger grants. And so what I recommend that you do is once a year, you come in and you get all of the updated information for all of these things. So you get the most recent tax form, the most recent audit, the most recent board members, have everybody update their resumes, update those job descriptions, and do this once a year. And then have access, if other people in your organization help you to submit those applications, put these on a shared drive or make sure they're on everyone's computers so that everyone has access to these as they need them. Because sometimes we're more in the phase of writing everything and getting everything done. And then at the very end, we're kind of scrambling to get that submitted or put it in the mail or however that works. And then we can't find some of these documents. And if it is required to submit, let's say your most recent 990 and you don't, they're just going to call your application incomplete and they're likely not going to read it at all. And so you certainly don't want that to happen. And these are just some of those things that we don't really plan on taking anytime. But if you have that updated, then you're ready for the whole year with all this information at your fingertips. So this part becomes much less of a headache and it's all kind of pre-done for you. I talked about a project planning framework, and if you've ever taken a GrantStation workshop or webinar about grant writing, you will have seen the project planning framework, and this is what I use to put together all of my grant applications. And so if you took 10 funders and you looked at their application or their guidelines or their request for proposals or whatever term it is that you're using. And if you lined them up and you looked at them, you would say, gosh, these 10 funders all want really 10 different things. And in reality, that's not true. They're really looking for the same things. They just use different terminology than from each other. And so it can look like they're all asking for really different things. So within this planning framework, what we're always talking about is getting the information down in each of these sections, getting them planned out and getting them connected to one another so that you have a plan that is tied to each other to tell a really coherent, consistent story. And after you've done this planning and you've looked at all these areas and you've created this, then it's not so hard to take the information out of this planning framework and just reformat it the way that different funders want to see it. So you can plan once and then take this information and submit it to 10 different funders using the 10 different funders formats, terminology, headings, all those kinds of things. So this is what we teach a lot, again, with that organizational background, giving your organization that credibility through a brief history and talking about your programs and how much of a difference you've made in your programs. Then looking at those that you serve and talking about what they're challenged with, and really given those statistics that really demonstrate those challenges that people are having. From those challenges that people are having, then we develop outcomes, or this could be goals or impact, to say what we want to see changed. And then our indicators or objectives would measure how we're going to measure those outcomes. Again, we have the information on what our target population is struggling with. Then we do an analysis of the reasons behind the need or the root causes of those challenges. And from those root causes, we develop an approach to meet one of those root causes. Usually we're not going to meet them all, but we're going to, meet at least one of them and bring others into the process with us. If there's other people that are doing other parts of the root problem, let's bring them into our program so that we're really working on this area holistically and not duplicating any services. And then lining up and then reporting on how much work we did here in our outputs. Finally, our budgets align with our approach. So our approach really talks about our budget, not in numbers, but in how everything that's in the budget, how it's going to be used or carried out. If you ask for a staff person in the budget, that staff person is going to be talked about in the approach and what they're going to do. So again, that's a really quick overview of what the planning framework is, but it's planning once and then being able to take this information and put it in the way that 10 different funders want to see it and maximize our efforts by understanding that terminology. The next part that we're going to talk about is kind of one of my favorites as well. It's just like using the talents and strengths of your stakeholders. Again, I saw a lot of me, and I saw a lot of me, myself, and I, and me and someone else. But we also have other stakeholders. We have board members. We have volunteers who volunteer for our organization. Sometimes we have people that we serve that are stakeholders within our organization. And sometimes those folks can help us do different things, or other people just that work in our organization. So say you have an administrative, someone who does a lot of administrative work, but is really good at doing editing or really good at doing research for you. Or perhaps you have a board member that's really good at, doing budgeting and helping you put together, really realistic budgets and things like that. So kind of having a fun session of really pulling out what your different stakeholders, the things that they like to do, the things that they're good at, and seeing if they can help out and take some of that load off your shoulders. So, people who could help you, people that maybe would like to help you find funders and that kind of thing. And that could be a task that they do. And so that you don't have to do that work. You can just focus on writing the applications, for example. So the other tip that I have for this is just to make sure that you're not just focusing on people's job descriptions. So, obviously your accountant would be good at budgets, but maybe your accountant also, really is great with technology and can really help you out with, making some great infographics that can help educate people about your programs and that sort of thing. Like it doesn't have to be what their job description is. Maybe they like to do other things. So kind of, having that fun thing and then where you can plug people in to help you in your process. The learning styles, I want to just talk for a second. And if you guys could all kind of go to wherever on your screen where you can do a thumbs up or a heart or whatever and do a emoji here. But I'm going to talk about different learning styles. And I want to know who in the room are the action people. So who are the people that, they really want to do the work? They want to see things get done. They don't want to talk about it. You don't want to do this and that. You just want to get in there and do the work. And so we've got a lot of people coming up. Our action people are in the room here. That's excellent. There's also people who are just people. They like to make sure, and tell me if this is you. You like to make sure that everybody's heard, that conflict is resolved. You're always kind of taking the pulse of the group. Yeah, so you guys have to be hearts. Yeah, definitely. Always trying to make sure, that people's needs are met and that sort of thing in the process. Excellent. Now we have our meaning people. And our meaning people are our great visionary people. They see the big picture and they really motivate people into action. They help people really see the work and how it contributes to a greater cause. Look at this. We've got lots of meaning people in here as well. And then our last group, we'll let you guys all kind of get in the room, is our structure people. These are people who have a spreadsheet for everything. They want the box checked. So here you guys come in. There's a place for everybody in this process. They want to see how things are getting done, timelines, workflows, and they keep things moving ahead, right? So we have all these different folks with us. And so, why am I even talking about this? I'm just thinking as we develop our teams in, writing proposals or doing any of our development work, we need people from all of these different quadrants. It's great to have a bunch of meaning people together, people who are those visionaries, and you're going to feel really good when you walk out of the room after you've been in a room with a group of meeting people. But there's not going to be the structure and the work's not going to get done. And, everyone's voice might not be heard because we didn't kind of get the different categories in the room. And sometimes we're attracted to those who have our own style, our same style. I really like everything to be on a spreadsheet and done this way. And I like other people who do it that way too. But that doesn't mean that you either that you want to do it that way necessarily. You want to get those kind of skills and qualities from all these different quadrants to pull them together to make that really great application or just in any development work for your organization. So make sure you're always looking for that diversity there. Then the last one I want to talk about, unfortunately, I am not sure of the status of where the AmeriCorps Vista program is. And if you go to the website right now, it is non-existent. But I do just want to tell you about it because it really is important, and so let me just tell you about it, and hopefully it's going to come back. But there's AmeriCorps, and then there's AmeriCorps Vista. VISTA stands for Volunteers in Service to America. So AmeriCorps members, they work within their communities. They provide direct services for your organization. So if you have an after-school program, they're tutoring the kids, they're doing this and that. They're working directly with your target population. AmeriCorps Vista is different though. And that's a capacity building program. And so what an AmeriCorps Vista member does is they help organizations build their capacity to have volunteers, to do fundraising, to do recruitment, to do grant writing, things like that. And so Vista members are great capacity builders for those small organizations that don't have the staff to do that work. So right now, like I said, I went to the site this morning. The site is down. The only site that's up is just AmeriCorps in general. And then that even says it's being redone. But this is, Vista members are awesome. I've had a lot of Vista members serve within the organizations that I've worked in. I've been on the board of of a literacy organization that was all volunteer. We got a Vista who did our, recruitment, wrote grants, kept track of everything behind the scenes. They didn't do the tutoring, right? But they helped to build that capacity of the organization. So it's something that I really encourage you to check into to see if it comes back, which I hope it will, and I believe it will, a really important program that can help build that capacity of your organization. So do keep an eye on that for when things kind of straighten out a bit. All right, the next one we're going to talk about is looking at artificial intelligence tools and other time-saving techniques. So we at GrantStation have done a lot of work from the moment that AI kind of came on the scene of really looking at where AI is good around proposal writing and grant seeking and all those sorts of things, where it has strengths and where it maybe has weaknesses. And so different things of taking and creating those first drafts for you. If you did something like take that project planning framework and you had that all filled out and you had it in a narrative form and you put that into a chatbot, you could then take a funder's instructions and say, these are the questions, take the answers from my project planning framework and put it in the order this funder wants it. And it's going to give you a really good first draft of that you can come in and polish and humanize and that sort of thing and check for accuracy and things like that. But when you feed it your own source material and then ask it to pull from your own material, it's going to be pretty accurate in doing that kind of work. They're very good at just editing for grammar, for punctuation, for word counts. It's not perfect at word counts, but it's really good at word counts, getting you closer to those magic numbers, which is always a challenge. But its real strength is in, kind of language and doing that editing. I use it for just brainstorming different ideas. Sometimes I might take a webinar that I've already put together and throw it into a chatbot and say, are there any resources that I could create to help the participants understand better? And a lot of times it comes up with different checklists that would be helpful to provide as supporting materials, learning materials. Again, it's taking my information that I already created and helping me create more of what I'm trying to do. Some of the things around, some of the more boring things that we might have to do if you're not in HR, but, writing those job descriptions and things like that, it can help you with those first drafts and, repurposing the source material. I already spoke about that. Reducing narratives, again, it does a very nice job of taking out and getting to the main points of what is the most important that then you can work with, or summarizing and different things like that. So we have found a lot of success using chatbots and really, and I think that this is something that can really level that playing field for those small nonprofits. That this is something, it's like having an extra staff member in some ways to really kind of help repurpose your material, where in the past you used to have to pay somebody to do it or do it yourself. Now some of these tools can do it for you. Again, you're ultimately responsible for everything, and it's not something that you just throw materials in and take the output and then submit it. But it's something that you can really work with, but it can really take off. And, just for example, the editing with, a high degree of accuracy, provide that editing that is needed. So I feel like it's a way to really level the playing field for smaller organizations. And we do a lot of different webinars at GrantStation teaching you how to do that. Um, so using those can be really good. Um, and then I didn't say this one, but also just looking at different sections of a proposal that you could, that will be reused, time and time again. One of those sections is your organizational background section. You can write an organizational background section. You can write it as long as you want it to be for the first of the year, and then throughout that whole year, you or anybody else in your organization that's working on these can come and pull from that text and again, just repurpose it into the order and the terminology that the funder is using and that sort of thing. So certain sections can really be reused over time. And I encourage you to do that as well. You don't have to start from scratch with everything. And again, if you do the planning framework that I spoke about earlier, it can really help you. That's where you're spending most of your time. Then the writing is like 20% of your time. It doesn't take hardly anything to rework the material, especially when you're using these resources. All right, so now let's talk about some partnerships, and then we will have some time for question and answers. So there's, a lot of different ways of looking at partnerships. Kind of the left-hand side of the spectrum here of associations or coalitions or collaboratives, those are all words that pretty much mean the same thing. And so just working with others within the area of interest that you're working with. So combining the skills and combining kind of the work that you do. You're not combining it as an organization necessarily, but really taking and saying, let's share some of the load, let's share some of the resources, let's share the work. And so maybe a coalition of homeless providers could provide, write a grant application. And, one time you're the lead, another time another organization is the lead. And in this third opportunity, this organization is the lead. And you can kind of share the writing across, so 3 different applications and kind of share the work that way. That can be a way to really save your time, that you're not going after every single opportunity by yourself. You're working within a group of people. I've been a writer of joint programs where 2 organizations just came together. One organization did, the mental health counseling and substance abuse counseling. The other group did a lot of the reentry work that was going on in the community. And so they did a joint program of 50-50. They submitted the application together, each, taking half to do their specialty. And really working collaboratively. So they actually applied for that one together as well. Looking at ways to maybe share different support functions. When you're looking at 3 different organizations, maybe wanting to collaborate together, maybe having some of that shared function of HR or a grant writer or a fundraiser or administrative support, where if you came together, each one of you could have a third of that person's time. So you kind of have that full-time person dedicated to this area. I don't know if it's human resources or administrative support. It's a full-time person that comes in. They're only doing a third of the work for you, but it's like kind of that guaranteed, full-time employee that is supported and welcomed into the organization. So a lot of times kind of sharing some of that work on the back end can really help you get some of the things that maybe you couldn't get, alone, or, that just you couldn't afford, or being able to, sometimes you can't get somebody, that will stay for a long time because you're only looking for a little bit of work because that's all you can support. And this could really be an opportunity to help support your development efforts. Um, and then kind of looking all the way to the right side here of mergers, that's a much bigger deal of really taking two organizations and putting them together, creating something new, dissolving the two original structures or three or whatever. Those tend to take a little more time. But again, looking at overall, I know a lot of organizations just in that past year, with the federal funding cuts, that a lot more mergers, did happen in that year, just simply out of necessity to keep programs running. So kind of, this takes a lot of time and a lot of support and a lot of development to make happen. And then you can see kind of to the left, it's a looser kind of coalition of people working together. So it doesn't mean that mergers are the best and associations are the worst. It just means there's a difference in how much investment these might take. But kind of all along the spectrum, it can really help you, especially again, as a small uh, organization, to really be able to have that support to, again, if it's in the grant writing world, if it's in the fundraising, or partnership development or volunteerism or whatever it is that you do. So those are the 5 points. We seem to go through those a little bit quickly today. Again, I do want to remind you of the TechSoup sale today and tomorrow. Also, we had a session last week on what a guide to GrantStation. The next one is February 26th. You can come live. Jeremy, who's on the call with us here today, shows you how to use all of GrantStation. But if you don't want to wait till February 26th and you really want to go out and see how to use GrantStation now, you can go to the how-to video and watch the one from last month. So with all of that, I would love to have some questions.
Well, I've got some that I can give to you. So let's go ahead and turn to an expertise that is very popular nowadays, and that's AI. Doug
Okay.
asks specifically, have you tried out multiple AI vendors? Have there been some that stood out positively and negatively, especially in regards to, running your own shop?
Yeah. So those are good questions. We have predominantly used Chat GPT, but we also do some work where, like, we've done some looking at what Claude AI does, what Gemini does. We've really stuck with ChatGPT, not because it's the best, but just because it's kind of like the, pretty universal. And so what we're usually doing is we tell people to, use one of them. If you start with Gemini and then you decide I want to use ChatGPT, the interfaces are almost completely the same. And so once you try out one, you can then, translate your skills very quickly over to another tool. So they change all the time as well. That, when we first started teaching a lot of things, there were a lot more hallucinations going on. You can ask the different chatbots to tell you where they're getting their information from, so you can verify different things. They have more links and that sort of thing. So I think it's really a matter of, one that you're comfortable with, one that does what you want it to do. And any of those, again, that are working on kind of large language models. So your Chat GPT, Gemini, um, Claude, and what's the other big one? I'm missing the other big one. Um, there you can use any of them, and like I said, they're going to be good at that language thing. When we do look at different, kind of uses in like data analysis or different things like that, You're going to want to test different things and find which ones would work the best for you. But we just suggest starting, playing with one or, using it, seeing what's working for you. And then if you find it's not working, try another. But you won't be wasting your time because once you go to the next one, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's the same interface essentially. And I'll be able to use this tool.
Excellent. Couple things I want to go ahead and put together into this question. One is someone was asking specifically with the $119 cost for GrantStation, what do you receive with that? And one of the big things is basically what Alice showed you today. This information we have as a part of your membership. It's included within our right section, and we've just made it a nice package for today. But you can go into a full breakdown of all the things we've talked about today with the right section that we have. We also have a build section, which walks you through the process of creating your organization's grant strategy, how to put things together, how to create time to do all this work. And then, of course, the biggest thing GrantStation has is a way to find grants. So we have a large collection of grants to search through. And someone asked if we have grants available, say, for just the U.S. market. No, we don't. We have grants available. Well, we do. We have grants for the U.S. market, but we also have them for the Canadian market. We have them for the international. We have an international database. We have a Canadian database. We have a U.S.-based database. So if you are interested in doing searches like that, you can do all of those and find different funding opportunities on GrantStation. So we cover not only the US, but also a lot of the world. So hopefully that answered some of those questions that came in. But this is the actual question I wanted to narrow down to. Victoria asks that as a smaller nonprofit, they're lucky just to find a grant whose qualifications they align with, which I completely understand. They can see the need for decision matrix when you have a larger grant pool, but she says that even using GrantStation, she struggles to find local grants where they might have a better shot at being awarded funding. How do you scale this model down for a smaller scale organization? And I just want to plant one thing in your head here, Alice, and that's our state database. But please continue.
Okay, thank you. I didn't even think about the state database. Yeah, so okay, I'm gonna go with the state database first. So within, and that again, as a small organization, you might not qualify for state funds, but we have a state database as well, where you can look at, all the grants available in the state of Nebraska, and it's broken down by different categories that you can look at, which follow our categories that are in our charitable database, which are our foundations and our corporations and all that sort of thing. So when you're looking at a smaller Victoria, you might not even sometimes when you're really, really small and you only have 3 funding opportunities that you have at a local level, you really wouldn't even necessarily have to have a decision matrix. It's like, yes, we match the mission and vision. Yes, we meet the qualifications. Yes, we have a relationship. All right, we're going for it. So, those can really be, like I said, as simple or as complex as you need it. The other part is just with using GrantStation. I mean, we have all of your local community foundations in a database, and we have a lot of the corporate foundations and the local ones in our database as well. So when you are just starting, I really recommend that you do start local because those kind of larger foundations are going to want to see that, you've been to your local community foundation already. You've been to your local United Way. You've gotten funds from your local businesses, that sort of thing. And then you kind of grow, from there to larger regional, statewide, national funders. So I really encourage you to look local, and like I said, I would go with, you can look for associations in our database, you can look for corporate, you can look for community foundations, independent foundations, family foundations, which all really vary across the United States, but your family foundations usually are pretty local in scope and fund a certain geographic area. So I encourage you to look at all of those to start with.
All excellent information. Thank you for that, Alice. Okay, Lucille has an interesting counter to the AI situation. What if we're not interested in AI at all? or in using it, do you think that puts us at a disadvantage? And or does it even really matter?
Let's see. I mean, it's a good question. I know a lot of people who that are against it, and that's fine too. There's lots of ways you can also set privacy within using the different chatbots so that your information is not used to train the model. Um, I feel like when you're using your own information, I'm putting in, the example of the slides. They're my slides, they're my work, they're me putting this information together. But if by using that chatbot helps me to create like I said, it'll create a checklist or a tool that I can then share with participants. And I just feel like that's a value add to the work I do. And I don't feel like I'm cheating or stealing. It's my work, and it helped me create something new. So the same with using it with the project planning framework. You're writing that, you're planning it, you're connecting the pieces, you're doing all of that. All you're asking it to do is just put it in a new format that a new funder would want. So I don't, I think especially when we're using source material that there's nothing wrong with it. I think that just on a personal level, I think we're going to have to know AI as just in society. Um, so, I think that it's only going to grow and it's not going to go away. Do you have to use it? Absolutely not. Um, does it speed up the process for some of the things that you would do? Yes, I think it does. But no, you don't have to use it if you don't want to.
Excellent. Well, it's good news for
Yeah,
people who are interested in
yeah,
going that direction.
that's right. Yeah.
Patty asks, in the GrantStation dashboard, what's the terminology used or where in the menu can you find the decision matrix and the project planning framework?
Oh, that's a great
So
question.
you're welcme to answer that if you know off the
No,
top of your
Jeremy,
head.
you go
Okay.
ahead. This is Jeremy's
This is my
world.
territory. So if you're looking for the decision matrix, what you'll do is when you're using GrantStation, you'll find a grant maker that's a good fit. You go ahead and add it to your dashboard. From there, you have a saved grant makers tab, and then you have an option to do the decision matrix from there. And that's everything Alice talked about. It's all integrated directly into the dashboard. You can go through, give your ranking, and see where something would fit specifically. Now, if you were looking for the other feature, which specifically was the project planning framework, and that is, of course, Alice's child that she
That's
created from
right.
scratch, you can find that in the I believe that's the build strategy section. No, it's right proposals, isn't
It's
it?
in the right
Right
section
proposal,
and kind
right
of
section.
yeah. And if you have a membership to GrantStation, it's a written tutorial, but it walks you through every section of that planning framework and how you put the pieces together, all that sort of thing. So it's not integrated like within the site, well, within your dashboard, but if you have a membership, you can learn how to use the
That's
project
right.
planning
Yeah,
framework.
the full aspect is all right there in the right section.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, can we see a live view of GrantStation? Well, you can go to grantstation.com and then you can see a live view of it. We don't want to go ahead and throw anything off today, but as
You
was
can,
placed in
okay.
the chat, you can actually view a previous tour that we had. We did with TechSoup, and we of course have one coming up on the 26th. But this is what I really wanted to talk about specifically. Dana asks, we have a lot of great courses. Are those free when you have a GrantStation subscription or membership, or how does that work? Might be good for
Yeah.
us to address that.
Yep. Just a little thing too. Here's where you can go to like see it in action. You can see Jeremy's last tour, that this guide that he did, and how to use the tools and all that sort of thing. So you can go look at it and see if it's valuable for you. And you'll get these slides today. And then yes, thank you for we didn't even pay you to talk about online education, but yes, we do have a lot of online education. We do try to offer a couple of webinars free every month. And then the rest of them are paid webinars. But last November, we did start an online learning academy. And we're still on sale for the Online Learning Academy. And so for $399, you can have access to a whole year of GrantStation webinars. And we do about 100 a year. We have online courses that you can take. We have recorded webinars that you can look at, anything that I've done. And so that sale though ends tomorrow for the online learning academy. But that for the $3.99 for the whole year, you get access to as many of our webinars as you want. And plus a lot of other resources as well. Um, and then alternatively, there's some that they usually cost $69 as kind of the standard cost for just taking a webinar one off.
So the 119 will get you access to everything you can do on GrantStation except the webinars. But then you can
Yes.
combine that membership with the subscription and then get everything GrantStation has to offer. And there's been a couple questions about the $119 price. I don't know if you guys wanted to go ahead and address that, Aretha or Haley, if you wanted to go ahead and just give some people a little bit of insight into that before we roll off for today.
I'm happy to jump in and talk about the 119 price. So that is running, it's already live, so you can go on TechSoup.org to access that. I'll put some links in the chat momentarily, and that'll be available until tomorrow, the 11th at 5 p.m. Pacific, and that's when that'll end. If you are renewing your membership, you can purchase through TechSoup and get that discounted rate for your renewal. It's just going to stack that year onto your subscription. So starting new, renewing, you can get it through TechSoup. So grab this deal while it's available.
Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
2 days only.
Yeah,
Cheapest, cheapest
this
you'll
is the
get it.
time. This is the
Yep.
day, the time to do it. This is the lowest price you will find GrantStation. What's the regular price? $6.99. So you are saving a ridiculous amount of money by purchasing it through TechSoup. Again, that's why I only offer it for these 2 days. So hopefully it's a good fit for you. And if you want to know more, of course, go to grantstation.com. And as Alice mentioned, you can go ahead and look at our old videos that we've had there, see what we have to offer as being, a part of a GrantStation purchase. So I think we're at the top of the hour, Aretha. Do you want to kick us out or do you want to take us out, I suppose?
I'll just let you go. How about that? Because you're
Perfect,
always
perfect.
welcome back. You're welcome back. And thank you so much, Alice. That was so awesome. Jeremy, you always do a great job. And kudos always to my teammate, Haley, for jumping in at the end. Everybody have a great day. Bye bye.
Thanks all.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.